Amazing. While this gets working, let's all stand up. Because sitting is the new smoking, apparently. So do a little bit of a stretch here and there to one side, to the other. Now 50 burpees. And I'm kidding. Sit down if you are an innovator. You should all be so sitting down by this point. Good. Amazing. So in Naked Ambition, together with Fiona, Erin, Carlos, Killian, and a few others, we partner with customers to solve complex problems. And complex problems is what brought me to systems thinking in the first place. Because these type of challenges have a high degree of interconnectedness and interdependencies across multiple factors and variables. We have been reminded today to design better products, design products that people want. I will go a step further and say that we need to design products that add value and are connected and aligned to the system they're going into. This is critical for business because our consumers are making more and more of their decisions based on ethics and impact. So Michael was talking about a company called Ambiente and their beautiful stands. Do you remember? That was not long ago, so if you don't, you really need a coffee. Okay, so Ambiente creates these beautiful stands. Our client, Melbourne Exhibition Centre, did have no use for these stands as there were no events to be run during the pandemic. This meant, as the Invincible book tells us, and future-proofing organizations, how quickly Melbourne Exhibition Centre became aware that they needed to reinvent themselves, utilizing the current infrastructure, resources, and relations. Now, that is not easy. Just think for a minute about the company you are working in and having to do that, as well as retaining your identity of being the home to the unconventional. I mean, this is tough business. Not only that, but the aftermath of COVID meant that they didn't have now the resources to deliver on this new proposition. In systems thinking, we say that sometimes today's problems come from yesterday's solutions. How many of you have been to the Loom? Yes. How many of you did yoga in the Loom? You would have seen me there, stretching in down dog. So with systems thinking, what we are able to do is build all those components, connect all those relations, be aware of the patterns, structures, and feedback loops that allow us to create products that are more aligned to the system, putting them into the market so we can assess how they perform in the real world. This allows us to make better strategic decisions about those products based on evidence. Design thinking also allows us to have insights into what is the root problem that we are trying to solve with our products. So we don't just operate at the system, at the symptom, but really go deeper. With this information, we also are able to understand what are the gaps for intervention or improvement. And it takes us from being passive reactors to participatory actors in the system. So systems thinking, how these all fit together. Let's start with some definitions. One of them is, what is a system? We will talk about the thinking in a second. But a system is the holistic sum of all the elements that come together in a relational way to deliver a specific purpose. Systems thinking takes us from that traditional, linear, sequential thinking, and it brings us into a more holistic, almost 3D way of thinking about things. This prevents us from operating with gaps in our knowledge and give us a better sense of everything that can influence and will influence our products. So now let's go into the thinking. And when it comes to thinking, we create these mental models. You have been talk about business models. We have touched on some of the behavioral models with Josie. So mental models is what we build to make sense of the world. And the good news is that you do it all the time, constantly, and all the 4 patterns together. So you are ingenious. So these 4 patterns of thinking help us understand systems. My question to you is, do you recognize the shape in the middle as a square? Yeah, some of you do. Others think that I'm doing a trick question. It's not a trick question. It is a square. Although Sahil will argue that it's a rectangle, and we have agreed to disagree. How many of you see this as a circle? Yeah. Now, here is the complex challenge. We want to create a circle and a square in one same structure. What comes to mind? You see, when we don't have the answer, it's really difficult to think about how those possibilities could live together, isn't it? But it is possible. It's a question of sometimes perspective. So how do we make sense of the world and incorporate all these perspectives to create better products and services? The first thing that we do is we make distinctions between themes. Now, this is when it gets funky. I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes and to think of a door. Bring it to mind. Notice that door, the details, the subtleties. Now open your eyes. What kind of doors did you think about? Don't be shy. A red door. Yes, a wooden door. What else? What this door takes you? Oh my gosh, there is always an overachiever. Oh yes, I'm going there with you, Emmanuel. Yes. In France, well, maybe Fred also comes. So yes, all of these doors are different. Some of them are car doors. Some of them are the doors to our homes. Some of them are sliding doors to a train. But we organize them in a system, doors. Then we organize those different subtleties into systems. And those doors, if you paid good attention, had door handles, hopefully, and hinges, and maybe some Baroque design or some funky Minecraft details. And all of those details are part of another system. Then we identify the relationships that exist between all those details within the system. This action and reaction. So if I pull the door, I open it. And if I push it, I close it. Action, reaction. And then it's a question of perspective. Am I inside the door? Am I outside the door? Very different perspectives. Much like the action and reaction of switching one projector or another, seeing a circle or a square. So in business, we often design our products and services with all these different elements that we have not spent time integrating, connecting, building the relations. Now we have seen from Josie's, Tendai, Lucy, how important relations are. That vaccine was too expensive. And without that relation with the distributors, parents would have never bought it. So relations are paramount. And how they influence our products is important. Systems thinking help us to do that. So we have less of a gap and more insights into what is the opportunity that are there. So what are the steps in building those systems? Because we do like the lineal. So I know that I'm being contradictory. I'm telling you to think systems, but I'm going to give you a set of steps. Can't help it. The first one is define what the problem is. Now, sometimes what people want is not what they need. So you need to go deeper and understand what is the root cause of what you are trying to solve for. Identify the nodes. The nodes are all the elements that come in and out that change, influence in any way or shape our product. We then create the map, make it visual, because a picture takes 1,000 words. Then identify the relationships and make them specific. What kind of relationship is there? And how do we understand it? And how do we leverage it? Then we look for those leverage points that allow us to design the intervention. So let me give you an example, because we love the example. Did you get that one, Steve? No. Can I go back? I could see he was like, damn, girl, too quick. Okay. So let me give you an example. We work in the health industry with a hospital. And this client was actually struggling to connect patients to the right health outcomes. This was not good. But the trust in the health system was eroding, which is never a good thing. So they needed to identify how to target the system. We started by building what that system around the patient was. And it's not just the hospital, it's not just the nurses, it's not just the doctors. There are family members, there are religious groups, there are communities. There are so many other people involved in a health journey. And what we saw is that there was a pre-hospital, during hospital, and post-hospital. So the journey starts and ends, not just in the hospital. We started to see what were the feedback loops that existed. And then we identified the intervention, which in this case was as simple as bringing the carer into the full conversation from beginning pre-hospital, because they understood better than anybody what were the symptoms that that person started to feel during the hospital, because they were in a better condition to understand what doctors were diagnosing and what were the procedures. And then after the hospital, because they understood the ecosystem that this patient was going to be put into and what the needs and gaps may be. So there are 6 fundamental concepts in design thinking. We go from parts into wholes, from linear to holistic, and from analysis to synthesis. Because information only makes us informed. It's the thinking on that information that makes us smart. And it's the thinking in that information that allows us to draw meaning, which is the whole point of having data from that information. From structures to processes, from hierarchy to networks, and from objects to relations. So systems thinking is a great way to understand how our products are going to perform in the system they're going into. This allows us to make them significant for the people that we are designing for, sustainable over time, and scalable, making the most of economies of scale. It's also something really important because it's the only way that we can target the big, complex problems, large-scale problems that we have in the world. So I want to give you no more information, but one question. I want you to think right now, what is the impact that you want to live in this system that we live in, and our kids are going to inherit? What is the impact that you want to live? Because if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And how can you in your organizations, the work that you do, deliver on that impact and that intention? Thank you.